Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I'm John Bishop with John Bishop Fine Art, and I'm delighted to have you back. This is Art Chat, the podcast, so welcome back. It is a new year, 2022, if you don't know when you're watching this, but we're now in January. Great holiday. We were able to travel some, and we haven't traveled for the longest time. I don't know if you knew it, my parents were both ill and passed away about a little over a year ago. And the whole time they were sick, we couldn't really leave. So it's been 4 or 5 years since we've been able to get away. And then all of a sudden we're traveling again and we're just exhausted. So I'm delighted to have been able to do things over the holidays. It was great, but I'm really, really glad to be back home and get back to some normalcy and hopefully back to some better consistency in the podcast and in the vlogs and the blogs. So delighted and hope you had a good holiday as well, whenever you're watching this. Because it's the new year, we just finished our goals and objectives. We do this every year. Bogdan and I come up with a kind of goals and objectives retreat. We go someplace, usually to a hotel, to the beach, to some nice place that gets us away from home, away from the studio, away from any kind of distractions, and we kind of strand ourselves so that we can't leave until we're finished. It's a long process. It is one that I actually love. I was involved in lots of corporate jobs and in city government and working for libraries and schools for many, many years. And we just did goals and objectives every year. It was part of our whole budget process, and I came to really love the process. Bogdan, however, is from Romania. And for Romanians, this is not such an easy process. I mean, Bogdan had a great job back in Romania. He was a producer for a television, and as an employee, no one would have ever have asked him for his opinions or his input on forming strategic planning and goal setting, and there's no way anyone would have given him a bird's eye view of the company and how it was run and how decisions were made. So this whole thing is very, very foreign to him. And added to that is just the kind of awkwardness of, I'm coming from a background where I'm doing this kind of goals and objective planning, but in a large environment with lots and lots of moving parts and people and departments, and each of which have their own goals and objectives. And this whole kind of strategic look at an organization is great, but it's just us. It's just two people. It feels a little awkward coming at this big kind of process when it's just me and Bogdan. So that in itself is a bit of a challenge as well. So we kind of meet in the middle. I don't get everything I want, and he doesn't have to do way too much. And I think that's really important when looking at small businesses, small art businesses. We have to be realistic. We have to do things in scale. Very often it's one person, two people max in an organization. And that takes a whole new way of management, right? So we have to give ourselves a bit of a break. Now, one of the reasons, don't think for a minute that this is accidental, that when we have these retreats, we go to a nice hotel or we go to the beach. This isn't my first rodeo. I know that if I'm going to keep Bogdan involved, offering him this vacation is a way to get him to want to participate. And part of the price of that holiday is that he has to sit with me and do goals and objectives. No, he actually enjoys the process when it's over. Doing it is very hard for him, and so. We do the best we can and try and minimize the impact on him. The other problem that we have is that, you know, for Bogdan, it seems as though this is something we do at New Year, and then we ignore it all year long, and we revisit it at Christmas, look back and see how we did. And that's my fault. That should never be the way we approach goals and objectives. And so one of the things we need to do this year is find a way to incorporate these goals and objectives into our daily kind of art practice, or at least more often. So that's something we can work on to make them more meaningful and therefore maybe more understandable to somebody who doesn't do this as often as I do. So anyway, we had our little retreat. We came up with 6 goals. But before we kind of dive into the list, I wanted to kind of quickly go over a quick definition of what we mean when we're talking about goals and objectives. Because in my experience, if you ask 10 people what a goal is, you're going to get 9 different answers. So I think it does behoove us to give a little bit of a definition so that we're all talking about the same thing. For me, a goal is something very, very general. It's a short statement. It's not complicated. It's a very direct statement. It is very general, non-specific, and it is something that is not measurable. It's something that you aspire to. It's wouldn't it be nice kind of statement. Now, under that are objectives, and objectives are where you get very specific. An objective is something very, very specific that is measurable and attainable. And if you did that thing successfully, it should lead to the fulfillment of the goal, or at least partial fulfillment of the goal. And so each objective then is quite specific and feeds into that larger non-specific goal. And then there are activities. Now, activities are the things that we do every day to keep the gears turning. And those are the kinds of things then that support the objectives. That in order to get that objective done, we have to do a bunch of little things every day. And so those are beneath the objectives. And those are very, very short-term building blocks, grunt work. That is really easy to get lost in, because if you don't have a plan, if you're not planning strategically, if you don't have goals, then you're just kind of stuck in the weeds doing those little things, and they're not necessarily building towards something that you want to achieve. And so I think it's really, really important to have that kind of structure and at least some clear definition of what you're doing with your goals and objectives. So having said that, let's look at what we came up with. The first one is actually based on what I was just talking about. We're going to try and find some way, some strategy to incorporate our goals into our day-to-day work life. We've got to somehow make these goals matter to us all year, not just when we're doing a review of the year. The second is very, very simple. We need to sell more art. As we're sitting through COVID, we're cranking out art, we're producing more probably than we've ever produced before, and we're just got a backlog of inventory sitting around. We need to sell more art and make more money off the sale of art. And that's very, very, a very non-nuanced kind of thing. The third one is that we need to increase the engagement we have on social media. We're doing all these vlogs and blogs and podcasts, and we're posting on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and yet we just don't see the numbers and subscribers that we think we should have. I mean, I look out on internet and look on YouTube, and I'm finding people who are doing similar kinds of content who are doing kind of less work, fewer videos, for less time, and they got a lot more followers than we do. So either we just completely stink, which is a possibility. Hopefully, like, subscribe, and all of that so that we won't feel that way. No, but it just seems to us that Yes, it takes a long time to build a following. It's taking us, it seems, longer than it should. We don't need to be rock stars, but we do need to have an increase in the number of subscribers and engagement that we get with the work that we're doing on social media. We also need to diversify our income stream. Now, this was one of our goals last year. And last year, what we asked ourselves to do was to come up with some strategies on how we could diversify our income, because we really didn't have a clue. And so this year, we actually want to try and install to realize some of those strategies and at least start to diversify our income so that we're not just relying on walk-in sales and the others that we have that are just not performing adequately. The fifth goal is an odd one. We want to address those home work-life balance issues. And this one is very, very general, obviously, and it gets a little frightening when you try and look at how to make objectives to this one. But we need to have a better balance of work and life. We work from home, we're together 24 hours a day. As a couple, that's great, and a couple, that's bad. It just depends. We don't eat well because we're on the road, we're traveling too much to and from work. Things slip through the cracks, and we need to have a better balance. And that's important to us, and we're going to have to find ways to do that this year. And then finally, the last goal is to expand our public relations. We need to get ourselves out there more, specifically through PR terms. We need to get into some print. We need to get some campaigns going that are going to give us more notoriety within our world. And so those are our 6 goals, and that's actually quite a lot this year. The real problem I have is, like, for example, with number 5. I'm looking now at how to create these objectives, and how do you write an objective around something like increasing your health and wellness? I mean, what is the measure? Is it happiness? How in the world do you measure happiness? And how would I know if I've made roads toward that? It's going to be difficult. But we're going to do it. We're going to look at it. So I'm looking at objective number 1 for goal number 1, and that was to incorporate our goals into our work life. And I have 2 objectives. The first one, sorry if you can see me reading if you're watching this, is to post our goals and objectives every time we meet. Every time we have a meeting, we're going to review those goals and objectives so that they're not something we just look at once a year. And they're not something that after the 3rd month, you're like, why did we write this one? I don't remember what we were thinking. So as we meet during each month, we will be looking at these, at least looking at them regularly. And the second one is kind of related to that. We're actually going to post them. We're going to put them in the studio, on the door, someplace where we'll see them every day so that they become, more a part of our daily life. Put them someplace physically where we'll see them more often. And I think that will help to achieve that goal. The second goal, that one about increasing social media engagement, I have 3 objectives. One is to attend more events, go to at least 1 art event every month. We tried to do that before, but COVID got in the way. It was effective, but like I say, COVID stopped everything. But if we're out there meeting people, handing out our card, making contact face-to-face with people in the art community around us, that's got to help get more followers, get more known, more engagement when we do. So that's one objective. The second one is to network with other influencers. Start guest appearing on other bloggers' blogs and vlogs, and comment more and become more of a participant in the kinds of platforms that we hope to build ourselves. So start to network more with those kinds of people instead of just being a consumer of their productions and their content. Actually start to kind of interact with them. That's something we can try and do. And the last one is actually to spend some money. Put some money against some ad campaigns that will try and get our names out there and reach people. I mean, the reality is, even my subscribers to my YouTube channel, to this podcast, not everyone gets this content, even the people who subscribe, based on algorithms and everything else. So, to a certain extent, maybe we need to pay to play. And we're not going to get that kind of attention if we're not buying some advertising and some campaigns. So anyway, that's the three objectives for that one. Goal number 4 is to diversify our income streams. I've got 3 objectives under that one. No, actually I have 4. The first is to actively pursue some galleries, trying to get some gallery representation. And I've started a process with that. I don't want to hound people, but I do want to let people know, yeah, we're out here, we're available. If I can be selling my stuff my artwork in Boston, I can't do that effectively from Houston. A gallery, even though they get a cut, makes a lot of sense to me. So we could kind of put feelers out and start to actively recruit some gallery representation. The second one is to start teaching some classes in person. Bogdan has a wealth of knowledge about technology, about editing, about photography. We can talk about organizing small business things, this kind of content. We can start to teach in person. We know a lot of people who are quite interested in spending some time and a few dollars. That could be another income stream for us. Thirdly, we could start selling prints. Neither of us really are in the print business. Now, obviously, Bogdan is a photographer. Everything he does is a print. But he's doing very, very limited editions, like 5 and 3 of a certain photograph, and then he's done. Well, there are other things that he could have that don't go into the editioning, and we could be creating prints. We don't really sell them now, and that might be a way of reaching people who can't afford or don't want to afford the original artwork, and still get some of our work out there. And that could help with promotion as well. And the fourth objective under that one is to really start promoting our Patreon page again. We set it up and we just kind of waited, and of course nobody came. I did have one patron in my Patreon account, and that was Mom. And when she passed away, I don't have any. Anyway, so that is another thing we can kind of promote this year and see if we can get a little more traction. And maybe other things we think of later, things that can bring more diversity into the kinds of income streams that we currently have. Goal number 5 is the work-home balance. I have 2 objectives under that one. The first is to kind of determine what a measure of success would look like, and that would be go a long way in determining how we're going to approach this. We got to know what success looks like and how we would measure that, what kind of metrics we would use. And so that's the first one. And the second one is to keep some sort of log. Just jot down, when are we eating? Are we exercising? Are we having downtime for relaxation and entertainment? How many hours a day are we working? A brief kind of, not an exhaustive thing, nor something that creates a lot of work, but just to jot down, how are we living our lives? And maybe that will signal some areas where we can just make some changes. We don't really know because we're in the thick of it all the time. And then the last goal was to expand public relations campaigns, and I have 4 objectives under that one. First, to write 2 articles every week. Those articles might be press releases or just articles about us, and then try and farm them out. If they don't go anywhere, they don't go anywhere. It's good writing experience for me anyway. So 2 articles per month that would go out, to attend at least 1 art event per month. And that kind of goes back to another objective that we saw earlier. Objective number 3, to appear as a guest on other influencers' platforms and programming. Objective 4, to write at least 1 press release per month. And so actually we've got at least 2 articles and at least 1 press release. So that's three writing assignments every month. And again, throw them out there and see where they stick. Getting that kind of press is really, really important to us at this stage in our careers. And then, finally, I wanted to talk a little bit. The frustration comes when you do all this kind of planning, and we talked a minute ago about, it's just us. It seems like a lot of work, a lot of detail and procedure and a lot of administration for just 2 people trying to get a small business to run. But I do think the planning is incredibly, incredibly important. And I just want to say, and I say this every year, at the end of the day, these are our goals and objectives. This is not a test. It's not a report card. It's not some way that we can judge ourselves or that someone else is going to judge us if we do or don't complete our goals. They're our goals. We can change them anytime we like. And I think that, I mentioned before, there's kind of a red flag for me. If I set objectives in January and in March, I don't remember really what that objective was all about or why we wrote it. It just doesn't make sense to me. That is the time that I need to either tweak that goal or throw it out completely and write another one. The goals need to be relevant to us. They need to be responsive to what's going on. We learned a lot with COVID. A lot of our goals that year, 2019, 2020, didn't make sense in the COVID world. There are things that we wanted to do that we just couldn't do. Things were closed. We couldn't go out. It just wasn't safe. We couldn't invite people in. It just wasn't safe. And so really, you need to be able to give yourself permission to change these things as you need to tweak them, to absolutely question them if they don't make sense to you. No one's judging you. These are your goals. And I think a lot of people I've spoken to do one of 2 things. They'll either say, I don't want to do all this goal writing because if I can't keep up with it, it just becomes a burden to me. Then something's broken. They should not become a burden to you. They are not a way for you to beat yourself up because you haven't succeeded to fulfill all your goals. The goals are a tool. They're meant to work for me, not me work for them. And so really these goals need to be something I give my permission to fail. I give my permission to change my mind. These are our tools. And I just want to say that because very often people start to beat themselves up at the end of the year. Oh man, I didn't get any of my goals. I'm such a failure. No wonder my business is struggling. We just need to make goals that are better. And to not have a plan means you're just wandering around. I found a quote today and it said that goals without action are just dreams. You could have dreams, but until you actually put a plan together on how to reach those dreams, you're not going to get there. You're just going to dream. So I wanted to say all of that, and I hope that you guys are having a great week. We're going to talk about goals and objectives pretty much all month. And I think the next time we talk, we're going to look at what does success look like for a small creative business. Is it the same as it is for any other kind of retail business or service industry? So that's something that you can pause it until next time. Have a great, great week. I wanted to point out that I have a giveaway this month. For the entire month of January, if you go to my webpage and sign up for my newsletter, I will give you a chance to win. I'm going to give away 5 original pieces out of my Gates of Wisdom series. There are 50 gates of wisdom. In the Kabbalah, I did 50 original pieces. They're only 5 by 7 abstract expressionist pieces, each one individual, everyone unique, and all signed in that. And so I'm going to give away 5 of them to the people who, I'm going to have a raffle for the number of people who sign up for my website, on my website for the newsletter. So if you'd like to participate in that, crank me out an email address on my website, and I'll get you registered for that drawing at the end of the month. So great, have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you soon. Stay creative, and look forward to talking to you again.